This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A ton of things to get into, so let's just jump into it. First question is from Homer Simpson, who says, do you think Cedric Tillman will be a third down receiver or just using the red zone situations this season? I think it's likely that Cedric Tillman's role ends up being more situational than it is going to be a staple part. One, Amari Cooper doesn't seem like he's going to be getting any worse anytime soon. He just came off of one of the better years in his career, and the same thing can be said about Donovan Peoples-Jones. When we look at other guys who have to fit in this rotation, we're talking about Elijah Moore, Marquise Goodwin, and then you get to Cedric Tillman. So just the numbers alone tell you, unless there's a couple of major injuries, he probably isn't going to get the opportunity to be a third down wide receiver. He might not even be on the field that much this year, right? Like, that's also a situation that could come up if there aren't a lot of injuries and we want this team to stay healthy. So yeah, Cedric, he's probably going to be put in some special packages. They're probably going to have, I would say, given the game plan, they're probably, like, at most he's going to get like 5 specific, plays that might have him in mind. Probably less than that on most games. So yeah, I wouldn't look for a ton of production from him in year one. What you do want to see with Cedric is, when he does get the opportunity, what does he do with it? That was the issue with David Bell, right? The lack of production wasn't the problem with David Bell. It was the lack of doing anything with any of the opportunities. Now, again, he was a rookie. He had a chaotic situation at quarterback. Maybe David Bell is ready to surprise some people. Maybe David Bell, plays more than we're all assuming here, right? It's also funny that the second somebody is no longer a rookie, all of a sudden they're an afterthought, right? We're all in on Perion Winfrey. We're all in on David Bell. We're all in on who else was here last year? Name whatever rookie. Jerome Ford, right? All in on Jerome Ford. Then a new crop of rookies come in and we forget all about these dudes as if they don't exist, as if we weren't excited about them last year for future roles on this team. And that's kind of the problem. Like, we're going to look at Cedric Tillman, and he's probably not going to produce this year. And some of y'all going to do the same thing to Cedric Tillman we've done to David Bell, where we're just going to act like he don't exist no more because, oh my God, he didn't light the world on fire in year one. Dudes are allowed to not be great in year one, and you don't give up on them. I don't know why that's become the thing recently is, hey man, the second year one doesn't happen for a rookie, oh my God, let's give up on him. But it's wrong. So that's a pet peeve of mine. Yeah, Cedric's probably not going to play this year that much. If he doesn't, that's fine. That's fine. We got to give people, people give Andrew Berry flack for this too. This is what drives me crazy. People give Andrew Berry flack for, keeping his draft picks and giving his draft picks ample opportunity to develop. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Like, you can say, hey, he should have put Anthony Schwartz in a position to start. Yes, of course. But he's not doing that, right? Like, he's not trying to develop them at the sacrifice of winning. There's a balance there, but that's not what he's doing. These guys should be able to develop. If Cedric Tillman does not light the world on fire in year one, cool. Maybe year 2 or year 3 is his year. We forget how many of these dudes did not light the world on fire in year 1 of their career. It's okay. It's okay. We are so impatient. And it happens every year. The second somebody's not a rookie anymore, it's like we don't. JOK, the second he was no longer a rookie, people were like, oh, he's a bum, he's small. Like, dog, can we develop players? I know it's a foreign concept in this city sometimes, but like, developing players takes multiple years. It's not a one snap and hey, look, now they're all pro. It wasn't even like that for Miles. So yeah, they're gonna have to develop him, which means a limited role in year 1, a limited role. We gotta stop doing this. And not that the guy's question was anybody that I have an issue with. But Williams then says, what will you be doing now to the first regular season game to know if Watson is back to his old self, or do we? I mean, we're gonna hope. And if he plays well at practice, and if he plays well at in the preseason, if he plays in the preseason, we're going to think, hey, man, he's close, but we're really not going to know until, he's playing for a real game. And he's probably going to look rusty at times in the first game. Literally everybody does. It's going to be blown out of proportion because it's Deshaun Watson, and he's the only one in the NFL that anybody's watching for any rust. But he's going to be rusty. Joe Burrow's going to be rusty. There's going to be some throws missed early in the season. It's going to take time, and it's going to be a process, but you should see overall better quarterback play out of Deshaun Watson this year. That's what you want to see. We won't really know if Deshaun Watson is back to his old self until he does it for like 4 or 5 weeks in a row. That's when we'll know, right? Because if he has a good game, that doesn't mean all of a sudden he's back, right? Because he can have a bad game next week and we're back at square one. It's got to be multiple games in a row. It's going to take time to build that trust. Remember, Deshaun Watson has done nothing in his career here. We have not watched that. So he has none of that trust built up that he did in Houston, in this city. So for us to have that trust, it's going to take a while. It's going to take 5-6 games. It might take a whole season for some of us. It might take 2 seasons for some of us, because we've seen the one good season thing before. A lot of these things that we want from the season or want from a game, we have to understand one game ain't going to do it for you. One string of games ain't going to do it for you. If you want this change and this difference, it's going to take years of winning, of years of coming through, and years of success in order for that change to happen. And still, it's going to take forever. But that's the process. Mike says, with the new additions on both sides, who do you see gelling first, the offense or the defense? Typically, the defense takes off running, but I don't think we can afford to come out slow offensively with the way the schedule is early on. Well, it's important to remember, we're not changing all the elements of the offense. We're just changing some of the offense. So, yes, for Deshaun Watson and these wide receivers, there's a lot of new parts. If you're Nick Chubb, there's not, right? So early in the season, you're probably going to run the ball a little bit more often than you would be inclined to later in the year, because that's going to be the part of the offense that's going to be ready to go day one. Same thing for the defense, right? Defensive line, it don't take much to adjust to this, right? Even the corners, if you're going to be playing more press man, that's not an adjustment that takes a while, right? You're not going from something simple to complicated. You're going from something that was more complicated on the defensive side of the ball to something that's a little bit more simple and a little bit more defined. Also, when we talk about getting a defense up and running, a lot of that has to do with the actual coordinators themselves. When you have a longer and deeper book of installs under your belt, it's gonna make doing this much easier. And that's just with anything, right? If you have done something a bunch of times in your career, you know how to do it well. especially Jim Schwartz, right? So he's going to have a ton of information to come off of when he's installing this defense. Be like, okay, yeah, I did this in 2002. I did this in 2015. Oh, when I was with the Eagles and we had this guy, we actually had to do this and kind of like the Rolodex of information that Jim Schwartz has available to him to problem solve things that might come up is so much bigger than it was with with Joe Woods, that is going to make installing this defense much easier. On the offensive side of the ball, that's going to take a little bit more time, because Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski, while they do have a good amount of experience, they're not the most experienced guys ever. And what they're being asked to do is a little bit more of a needle thread than a defense, right? When a defense, you're asking them to go from very complicated zone shells and different coverages and disguises and all that to more simple concepts that everybody can grasp, that you have coached a ton throughout your career. So it's much easier, right? Even on a defensive line, what you're asking them to do, much easier. Okay. You flip to the offensive side of the ball, you got the opposite problem going on. You're going from a wide zone offense that at this point, I feel like 50% of the league runs, to switching to more of a spread, right? Things that have more spread concepts, more college concepts, more RPO concepts. There's going to be a ton of things mixed in here. You're going to be taking something that was simple, and this is for good reason, right? Because part of the Browns' offensive issues were that they were too simple at times and easy to predict. So now you're taking an easy, simple kind of situation there on the offensive side of the ball, and you're making it a lot more complicated you're not complicated, but complex and more difficult to stop, which requires a lot more work to go in there. And then you're also threading this needle between, hey, Kevin and Deshaun, and they're building an offense together, and there's going to be trial and error between what works in this guy's eye and what works in that guy's eyes. The offense, man, that's going to be a little bit of a process. Now, there's a floor in which they need to get to, right? Like, that's the most important thing. This offense needs to make sure that by the time they get out of camp, they can only be but so bad. That's the most important thing. I don't think they're going to play their best football offensively at the beginning of the year. I hope they don't. I want them to play their best football at the end of the year, because that's when it matters the most. But it's not going to look like how it looks like at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year. And at times it's going to look ugly, because that's much more of a process. Defensively, yes, there are going to be some things that are a little bit different, but man, overall, there's more that's similar with the Joe Woods style and the Joe Woods alignments than there is that's different with Jim Schwartz. So that adjustment should not take forever. Offensively, hey, this is going to be a little bit of a process. You know what I mean? This might not click until week 9. That's fine. You should still have the offense to a level to where you can still win games, right? You can live in the gray area a little bit offensively, and that's where you should start the season at. Say, hey, the offense is not going to carry this team, but we can win games with it. And Deshaun's going to be able to have moments to do special things that puts us over the top. But as far as like clicking on all cylinders and being, the top whatever defense that everybody wants it to be, that's more reserved for later in the year, if not next year. It's going to be a process to get these things to work together. And offensively, I'm not going to undersell the difficulties that they're going to have trying to put all that together, and the fact that, hey, this might not be the most spectacular offense when you see it week 1. It might be a good offense. It might be at where it needs to be, but it's going to be a work in progress throughout the whole year. And I think that's kind of being undersold at this point. Dr. Maggie says, hey, who do you have as a top 3 candidate for Rookie of the Year? I think CJ Stroud going to win Rookie of the Year this year. I think the Texans are much better than everybody is assuming. I think CJ is going to play well in that offense with a decent offensive line. I would not be surprised if CJ Stroud won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Also, if Bryce Young's size doesn't keep him off the field, he's probably going to be very good. I don't know how good Bryce Young could be in the long run, and keyword there is in the long run, but short term, he'll be fine, fine enough to win Rookie of the Year for sure. if his body does not cause him issues on staying in the field. Chance says, hey, Q, if you could see or sign one more player to the Browns this offseason, who would it be? I hope for maybe Frank Clark or Ndamukong Suh. I don't think you need to bring Frank Clark here. I think you have enough edge roles available. Ndamukong Suh, sure, if that's really what you wanted to do. Honestly, I would go more Matt Ioannidis, more along that line. But that's where my mind sits on that question. Kelly Bell says, hey, Q, can you take a deeper look at Maurice Hurst, maybe analyze some film? I think he's a bit of a unicorn for this defensive success. He's an interesting prospect because when he's played very well. And this is a guy that had incredible pedigree coming out of the University of Michigan, was one of the better players in his draft class, was one of the better players in the Big Ten. Like, he's been good at football when he can play. The issue with him is health and being able to stay on the field. And he's another situation where I don't think he's played football in like 2 years. So there might be a little bit of a rust factor in for him. Or maybe it might be injuries with him. But he's somebody to watch. If he does stay healthy, I would not be surprised if he put a good year together with Cleveland. But it's going to all be dependent on his health, which is why I don't think anybody wants to depend on him right now. But if you're in a position to where you have an area where Maurice Hurst can come up and surprise you, hey, you're all for it. But I don't think we're going to want to just peg him and say, hey, this is exactly what we're going to be doing, and he's our guy, because the injuries have been such an issue with him. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. You have a great day. Have a good night.